Sometimes I get to wondering how we ever believed the Bible was from a God, and especially from a good God. And I was thinking the other day that just a few little snippets from the book should be enough to convince anyone that it's not inspired by a good God. You'd think we would have read the atrocities in the Bible and at least pondered on them. But we not only didn't do that, we actually defended and justified the evil the Bible presents, calling it good. Let's look at just a few horrendous attitudes and behaviors that Yahweh commanded, supported, or exhibited that I have found to be particularly wicked. I've mentioned a couple of these in other videos, but I have more to say about them here. And I hope that those who hear what I'm saying and have not yet rejected this evil book will take a moment to consider whether the words and actions seem to be perpetrated by a holy, divine being. Forget everything you've heard. Forget everything you've read. Forget everything you believe. Open your mind and listen, imagining that the being propagating this behavior is a God you never heard of. If it helps, pretend I'm talking about Zeus or Odin. Okay, here we go. Number 1, if a man sells his daughter, that's enough. There's no need for me to say more. If a man sells his daughter, think about that. This is a supposed good God telling a man that first, he owns his daughter, and further that he has a right to sell her as merchandise. She's his property. He can do what he wants with her. In fact, he can offer her for rape to a bunch of lecherous men when he's trying to protect angels in his home and still be considered righteous in the eyes of his God. A daughter and all women are considered property in the Bible. A man who's rich enough can buy 2 or 3 or even 1,000 if he's a rich king like Solomon. And his God still loves him and thinks he's great. And there's no way to make trafficking women anything but immoral. And yet I know that when we were Christians and approved of this, we said, but back then, this is the creator of the universe that we're supposedly talking about here. There should be no back then. Back then, the same as right now, any decent God should be able to guide his people in ways to make a living and have a decent, good society without having a man own his daughter and sell her for money. There is simply no excuse for this revolting practice and attitude toward females. And it obviously came from the mind of men and not from a loving God. Number 2, this may be my favorite, or least favorite, I should probably say. Kill every male among the little ones. This is absolutely heinous. And oh yes, we all made attempts at justifying this murderous act. The little boys were better off since they went straight to heaven. Those little boys would have been a threat to murderers, to the murderers. God knows the end, so his ways are always right. Our thoughts are not God's thoughts. His are a whole lot higher. It's amazing what we told ourselves in order to love this monstrous God, making ourselves believe that the thought of killing baby boys is way higher than our thought that we should try to keep baby boys alive. Anyway, it seems that if we're scared somebody might be a threat to us, we should kill the person. Don't wait to see if he's really a threat. Don't take any chances. Maybe we should kill all little babies. That way, they all go to heaven, and none of them can grow up to tempt us to serve other gods. Makes sense, right? You know, like the Baptist guy killed all those massage parlor workers. They tempted him. They caused him to sin against Yahweh, so he killed them. That's what we're supposed to do, right? If people might possibly be a physical or spiritual threat to us, we should be a threat to them first and get rid of them. It's the godly way. Somebody actually said that to me, that those little boys would have grown up to be a threat. That's why I'm talking about this. Here's another one along these same lines that is particularly painful to read. Ezekiel 9, 5-6. And to these he said in my hearing, go through the town after him using your axes. Do not let your eyes have mercy and have no pity. Give up to destruction old men and young men and virgins, little children and women. If an all-knowing God can't come up with a better way to save his people than to have them commit murder of the worst kind, who needs a pitiful God like that? He gets angry at people for killing their own children by sacrificing them, to other gods anyway, and then he commands them to murder the babies of other people because that's somehow good? Now I can just sit now. I hear that up in Louisville, they're killing babies and sacrificing them to Moloch. So I say to myself, well, this is awful. I have to stop it. So I run on up to Louisville and kill all the babies myself and say, there, whew, I fixed it. They can't kill those babies anymore. Surely we all see the insanity in that. And surely we all see that it's not good. It's disgustingly evil, and yes, we should have known. Number 3, but all the girls who have not known men by lying with them, keep alive for yourselves. When they murdered these baby boys, these men were told by their God to keep the little girls for themselves. Now first, obviously the little girls weren't deserving of going straight to heaven like the little boys were. And apparently, girls can't be threats. No danger of little girls growing up and enticing Israelite men to sin. Yes, I'm rolling my eyes. And whatever reason Ezra had to make the Jews cast out their foreign wives and abandon their own children, somehow it didn't matter in this instance. It's okay to have foreign girls here. Yahweh works in mysterious ways, that's for sure. By the way, this was rape on the part of these men. These girls didn't get a choice in the matter. And no girl in her right mind would want a man who had murdered her entire family. Save the little girls for yourselves. We read that and we thought it was good and holy. What in the world was wrong with us? Number 4. Moreover, of the children of the strangers who sojourn among you, of them you may buy, and of their families who are with you, which they have conceived in your land, and they will be your property. You may make them an inheritance for your children after you to hold for a possession. Do you hear those words? This is referring to human beings, and we see words like buy and property and inheritance and possession. And we thought a good God was behind this. We thought a good God condoned making merchandise of humans. We thought a good God approved of human trafficking. So a man can not only sell his own child, but he can buy and sell the children of others. But of course, because all children, and apparently all women and even all men, were fair game in Yahweh's eyes when it came to owning people. Sure, it wasn't right when it was the Israelites who were enslaved. That was horrible and evil. But who cares about the other people, right? They're subhuman. You know what's interesting about this? In one passage, Leviticus 25:44-46, Yahweh says the Israelites could buy and sell foreigners who sojourn among them and bequeath them to their children, but couldn't rule over their own people harshly. Then in another, Leviticus 19:33 through 34, he tells them to treat foreigners living among them as they treat the native born, and love them as they love themselves. I can't love someone as I love myself and also consider him or her my property. Number 5, if a man strikes his servant or his maid with a rod, and he dies under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Notwithstanding, if he gets up after a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his property. We might at least have thought Yahweh would tell slave owners, Israelite slave owners, to treat their slaves well. Au contraire, mon ami. A slave owner could beat his slave, knocking him to the ground so that he couldn't even get back up. That's how damaged the slave could be, and Yahweh wouldn't even bat an eye. A slave might be injured so badly that he could lie on the ground for 2 whole days, and Yahweh was perfectly fine with it. People could come and go, seeing the slave lying there, and say, oh well, guess he learned his lesson. And Yahweh didn't give a rat's tail. Now again, one would think that since Yahweh didn't like his own people being mistreated in Egypt, he might have had a little more compassion for slaves from other nations that weren't under his authority. But hey, he was, after all, only the God of Israel. He wasn't concerned about the people of other gods. Wipe them off the face of the earth for all he cared. In fact, that would be better, and he tried to do it. Still, we should have taken note of this. We should have cared. We should have been repulsed. Number 6, notwithstanding no devoted thing that a man shall devote to Yahweh of all he has, whether of man or animal, or of the field of his possession, shall be sold or redeemed. Every devoted thing is most holy to Yahweh. Most holy. No one devoted who shall be devoted from among men shall be ransomed. He shall surely be put to death. He's been given to Yahweh. He's holy. If you look at this whole chapter, it starts out valuing the lives of various individuals. Males are always valued higher than females, of course. Then we come to this lovely couple of verses. If you devote anything, human or beast, to Yahweh, it is to be put to death. Yes, I've heard that this was a punishment for some crime. Well, I'm not sure what crime the beast or the land, which was also mentioned here, committed. The context is obviously that anything, including humans, can be given to Yahweh. And if it's a human or another animal, it's to be murdered or sacrificed, if you will. Number 7, apart from shedding of blood, there is no remission. We read those words and just moved on. But think about what that's saying. It's like saying, I'll forgive you, but I want my pound of flesh. Or you can live your life as a free man, but only after you spend 20 years in jail to pay for your crime. What kind of remission or forgiveness is that? If somebody has to pay, that's not forgiveness, that's retribution. No wonder people sacrifice their children. Their children were their most prized possessions. If a God wanted something in order to forgive, surely one's firstborn child would be enough. You'd think that anyway. Yahweh is supposed to be merciful. If he's merciful, then he must forgive without payment, as this is the definition of mercy. Jesus clarified that true mercy or forgiveness doesn't require retribution. Obviously, if payment is made, forgiveness or mercy is no longer needed. So if Yahweh is merciful, forgiven 70 times 7 as he forces his children to do, then he has no right to demand a blood sacrifice. Mary, did you know that your baby boy would one day be tortured mercilessly and then slaughtered like an animal? All because his father you worshiped couldn't forgive you unless your baby suffered and died on a cross? This is presented to Mary as some kind of great blessing. Hey, Mary, guess what? You get to be the woman who has and loves the child that I'm going to sacrifice so I can bring myself to forgive you and all other filthy humans. Isn't that wonderful? Bow down and thank me, Mary. So Mary has this supposedly perfect child, and when he's 12 and lost, he smarts off to her when she finds him and chastises him by saying, "Why were you looking for me? Didn't you know where I'd be?" Then when he's grown and Mary asks him to make wine, he gets frustrated with her and says, "Woman, what have I got to do with you?" Another time, she and his siblings come looking for him, and he shamed them by saying, "These people here, the ones who listen to me and obey me, they're my mother and siblings." And then, worst of all, Mary had to suffer at the foot of the cross as she watched her beloved baby boy be nailed up, be nailed up, and that after beholding him being mocked and scourged and beaten bloody. And why did all this have to happen? Because Yahweh has to have blood. Christianity is a cult of human sacrifice. But yeah, it never entered Yahweh's mind that his people would practice the pagan ritual of child sacrifice. At least that's what he said. Although he had planned to string up his own son as a sacrifice to himself from the very foundation of the world. And let's not forget that the baby boy Jesus, whom Mary was blessed to have, was also the one who planned to punish her if she didn't do exactly as he said. The child was also the unforgiving father. By the way, despite his claims, Yahweh required human sacrifice other than his own son. We already read Leviticus 27, 28, and 29 about anything being given to Yahweh, including a human, had to be put to death. So, yeah, and he also, but besides that, he also required the sacrifice of people's children. He didn't like it done for other gods, but he wanted it for himself. Ezekiel 20, 25 and 26 says, "And further, I gave them rules which were not good, and orders in which there was no life for them. I made them unclean in the offerings they gave, causing them to make every first child go through the fire, so that I might put an end to them." Even the New Testament compels one to abandon his parents, wife, or children if it's required to serve Yahweh. A person is obliged to give up his own life if it's required to serve Yahweh. Number 8. Love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, but bring those mine enemies and kill them before me. This is all in the same book, Luke. It's Luke 6:27 and Luke 19:27. So we're to be godly, to be perfect like Yahweh, but godly is to murder our enemies. And of course, that's what we see in the Old Testament, murdering of enemies, despite the fact that these people were also told to love their enemies, just as they were told to murder them. We have, over time, come to realize that this type of behavior toward our enemies is wrong. And we've simply excused the previous behavior of the people of Yahweh. And yes, we should have known better. Number 9, and the final one. So shall my word be that goes forth out of my mouth. It shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. But enter in at the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many are those who enter by it. How narrow is the gate, and restricted is the way that leads to life. Few are those who find it. If Yahweh's word accomplishes what he pleases and prospers in the thing he desired, yet few are saved, then Yahweh's desire is that few be saved. He's omniscient, remember? He knew his plan would fail, and that was his desire, to create a faulty plan and watch it fall apart. It's the same as the Garden of Eden tale. He knew that wouldn't work. He knew it would all fall to pieces. He knew when he kicked Adam and Eve from the garden that he would destroy their descendants later in a flood. Yahweh's always making plans he knows won't pan out. That seems to be what he does best, and if he is truly omniscient and omnipotent, all I can figure is, if he's real, he enjoys making us suffer. The God of the Bible is vile. He is disgusting and revolting, and we should have known. But we didn't, because we were brainwashed, most of us from an early age. And it takes time and courage to look at a book we thought fell straight out of the sky and reject it as evil. For some reason I can't now fathom, we thought the whole thing was inspired by a loving God. And speaking of inspiration, what exactly does that mean? Well, it just means some thoughts came into some crazy man's head, and he attributed the thoughts to a God. What else can it mean? I mean, it happens all the time, even today. God put it on my heart. God did this and God did that. God knew I needed a new washing machine, and he had my neighbor put her old one out on the street just as I was coming home from work. This person is proclaiming, not suggesting, that a God did this. How's that any different from what we read in the Bible? It's not any different at all. It's just people proclaiming that God did things that they don't even know. Yet we think somehow when it's in a book, oh, well, that one was real. That's the mysterious inspiration that we thought was something special and lived our lives by. And yes, we did that despite the fact that the so-called inspiration was filled with ghastly and horrid commands. And I, for one, am ashamed and disgusted with myself for believing it and accepting it as good, and especially teaching it to my children. In the future, I hope that if we should have a dream or a vision or hear a voice out of the sky telling us to murder little boys or rape little girls or buy and sell human beings, we will have the good sense to know that it's not from a good God. We probably should have the good sense to know that we need to see a psychiatrist. And hopefully that's what we'll do. Thank you for watching. Bye.